I'm interested to hear how Territory are using AI.
We just recently delivered a project where we pushed Comfy UI to do almost like a deep fake of footballer, and we got archival footage and images from this footballer from the early days, low resolution, degraded footage. But thanks to AI, we were able to clean up, upscale, and recreate her face, pass it into a model, be able to do a live interview with this footballer that is not alive anymore.
I want to talk about AI, obviously, but also I want to touch a little bit on creativity, because sometimes I think people can feel that like AI is a threat to the industry, our profession at the moment. So I'm interested in talking about also the things that you do to just optimize your performance, so to say, things that you do. Yeah, thinking about that really, I want to just start with your story a little bit. Not right at the beginning. So now obviously you're a creative director, you're a co-founder and you're on the board at Territory, but I don't think that's where you started, right? So you started as an art director and moved your way up through the company. So obviously sometimes a little bit tricky to be self-reflective, but I wondered if you had any insights on what are the qualities and the traits that helps you rise up through the company.
Yeah, I think you're right. I didn't start the company as a co-founder. Got to do that after years of working there and coming to the US to open our second office and then continue to expand the company. I think like being hungry, I would say, is one of them. Just if you want to be getting to a certain point, you just also have to be hungry for that first. And for me, it was always like, of course, curiosity. I think is also another trait. Being curious and wanting to explore other areas. Diversification, as I always say, has been one of the best choices as a career and as a company that allowed us to expand and maybe be less exposed to market volatilities and whatnot. So being curious, that I think that comes from being curious as well. And where else we can apply our skill set. This is something I learned when I was at the beginning of my career working for the VFX industry and then jump into games. I think that's what triggered lots of that. I don't know if it's a trait that helps you like rise up or anything, what we'll say, but it certainly protects you from volatility, patience. I think learning every day, falling, as in falling and then and getting up again, failing. We'll say we don't age, we don't mature by age, we mature by damage. I think it's the same in our industry. You mature by getting things wrong and going again, trying to be better. For me, it was always I wanted to be playing at a top level with the top designers that I always looked up to. I wanted to be doing the projects that they were doing. So I think this ambition, this sort of a being hungry, wanting to be there is key to get you if you want to be there, because I've met lots of people, even in companies, that they say, no, we're cool doing this and we're happy where we are. And that's absolutely valid too. Or even artists here, senior artists that they don't necessarily want to go into directing. They like being in the box. They are very good at doing it and they want to own that space and become very good at that one thing, not necessarily be progressing through ranks and experience. I think when it comes to ranks, experience, and progression, also what I would say is never skipping any of the steps. If you really want to get to directing or whatever, like you have to go through certain experiences. I don't think any shortcut will help you in the long run, right? Because you have to be there first to lead others with the right decisions because you've been there, you've been hurt before, and things like this. It's through experience. And then I don't know, man. I think I heard it I heard it in a podcast. Greatness is an agency of others. I think it's true. Like surrounding yourself with great people around you is half of the game. The nice environment, nice people, skills you can always learn. Being a nice person is nothing I think you can learn at a certain age. If you're not a nice person to work with, I don't think it's something you can teach. So yeah, surround yourself with nice people and a nice team. That's always what I'll say. These are all of the things that I think, in my opinion, helped me got to the point where I am now, and I'm still going. For me, it doesn't stop. I always like a challenge.
Yeah. I think this is good advice for people who are a little bit concerned about AI as well, because in the same respect, it's like always being curious and learning the new tools and like this resilience, like about learning to fail and keep going. And that's important. But it does raise a question for me at the same time. Like you say being around people is important, and we're moving away from that. And like you also mentioned working up through the levels, and a lot of AI is taking away the low level production work. Do you think that's like a challenge for youth?
100%. Yeah, no, I agree. I think in many industries, you see it with paralegals that now they don't need to be checking documents for mistakes because AI can do that. So what is the entry level? I think if any, you will we'll redefine the entry level. What is an entry level job that is not what AI can do? What we still need you to do that AI cannot do, but we are too busy to do. Because of that whole thing, rotoscope, match moving, all of these things are also going to be taking over by AI. They're process driven mechanisms. How you go from A to B is this, it doesn't involve it involves some training, but it doesn't involve a lot of thinking sometimes. And those are like the mundane tasks that AI will eliminate. But there will still be always like new talent coming in that they will want to help. And we will always find ways that they can help, even if AI, has taken some of this more mundane work. You can see it from the other side. It's like maybe entry level people will have more exciting things to do now, not these mundane things that we used to do by hand now are taken off our hands by AI.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think people might need to just step up. Maybe we'll move to that kind of like more of a mentoring role where you do spend more time with a senior person, because that's the only way to learn, because the more mundane tasks are gone. Cool. But I wanted to ask you, I imagine working at Territory, working on kind of these huge multi-million dollar films is quite stressful, or at least high pressure environment. So I wondered if you like have any routines or creative habits that help you keep performing at a high level?
Yeah, I think dedication is what's going to get you there. I think the more hours you put to something like these, the better. And hours means not just kill yourself and do 20 hours a day, but just if you want to go or get there faster than others, you're going to get there faster if you're putting 10 to 12 hours a day, not 8. Especially at the beginning. I do remember, or starting young for me was a critical thing. I started working in the industry when I was 19, like after I got a placement after an internship and they offered me a job. I was like, sure, yes, I'll finish my degree at the same time. I'll jump in. That also played a little bit in my favor, because later on, maybe 8 years in, I was dealing with projects at an age, at a director level, where all of the other directors were older than me. That played to my advantage to say these young kids doing these things, right? Like a younger guy with this much experience. That's only because I put a lot of hours early stages in my career, and I put it very hard. But you need to maintain a good balance. I'd say exercise, probably some very understated, and maybe for younger generations, is an understated cure to what we do. Sweating, getting fit, whatever is through cardio and strength, has been one of the things that I've not aspired to be super fit or ripped or be a bodybuilder, but I know that it helped me here. I know that when I don't do it for 2 or 3 days, I might get more irritated about situations at work, or like I will be in not a great mood if something doesn't go my way. And in business and in this industry, it's crazy, right? Like things go left or right. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But what you want is just the times that the things don't go your way, you're gonna be in a mental space that is where you can move on faster, and you like take a positive view on it, learn from it, move on to the next thing, maintain charisma around you and a positive sort of light for the rest of the team also to see that like Marty's not worried. That must be good. Let's keep doing. If they see you like down, or they see you on a mood, like it's all going to reflect in your team ultimately. So you have and that's also an extra pressure that you have, right? In that position. And also you're traveling around the world every week. You are completely on the clock is bad. There's like the rigor of still exercising when you are jet lag or when you're not home, you're not in your normal routine. That takes something. I think if I had to talk about daily routines, will be exercising, trying to get your sleep and eat well. It's as simple as that, but that's definitely going to reflect well in your daily work and socialize. I think I probably will touch on that later, but there is after COVID, especially, there's a lot of people in our industry that kind of get locked in their rooms and all they see is a screen. They live in this sort of a digital only world. To socialize and get out there and do things with other people, friends, be exposed to strangers, get out of your comfort zone, be outside, connect with nature in different ways. That also helps these. And this is like the most important part, as in these, as in your brain and your mood and how you operate as a human being. It's not all about the physique. It's like more about like your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think we often forget about that, like, as creatives, that it is like your mind and body aren't separate. Like, people like use, especially when we spend a lot of time at a desk, like, it's so important to get out and exercise and do these things, but also like community, like being inspired by others is such a huge motivation as we like learned at Paradiso. I think you were inspired probably.
Yeah, no, that exactly like that. This is being with other people. Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. Our connection to screens doesn't end up at work now. We probably take it with us with the phones. When I was starting in this industry, even I had to learn certain softwares from a book. Like you don't learn softwares from a book. You learn softwares from another screen on a tutorial. And then once you finish work, you have your phone in front of you. Like that, very different to at least to our generation that grew up with maybe in a slightly different outlook when it came to like digital media.
Yeah. And this theme of inspiration was another thing that I wanted to ask you about. Territory is famous for having a future forward look, and you're tasked with creating futuristic concepts a lot. So I was wondering, where do you find inspiration for that? Because a lot of us might go to Pinterest or something, but if you're trying to design things that don't yet exist, where do you find your inspiration?
Yeah, I think you need to look elsewhere. Otherwise, you're going to end up copying something that already exists. I think, and by look elsewhere, I always talk about like in certain films, I got inspired by things that were not UI. If we were to start a UI project, the last thing that I will ask my team will be one, to never use any of the files that we already use in another film or another project, because even that little thing, that little icon will end up. So try to kind of start from scratch. And then when you look at inspiration, don't go and look at what G Monk and Ashtorp did, because we're going to end up doing the same. And then what's the point? What I always ask is look elsewhere. I always say nature offers a lot of great inspiration when it comes to colors, when it comes to geometry, distribution of space. I love architecture. I love even product design. Sometimes I look at certain products. Most of them like are physical products, but the way that, especially from us, from the side or from the front, you look at certain things and you can get to find like shapes that could, then you mirror that shape and you have two handles on the side, and it's playing around with things like these. So you look at like architecture, you look at the part of a building and that top has something that could inspire like the top of that screen or a button. I think I said it in one of my workshops. We were designing reticles and I said, now we got to do something that I once discovered. There's lots of cool, the sort of plastic caps that you get in coffee places, in airports or whatever. Some of them, when you look at them from the top, they have a distribution of circles and lines that can create a very cool reticle. That's what I mean. And this is a stupid example, but it is a good example to say sometimes inspiration can come from other products, from nature, from other forms of art. And that's where I try to do, unless we're being asked and tasked to look at a specific UI style. If someone says, we want this film to be like as close as the military but maybe in 10 years, okay, cool. We're going to do our research about what military is using now and whatnot. But that's because when you need to design for something that doesn't exist, you cannot be looking at things that exist. Otherwise, the brief, you're not going to be answering the brief. Right?
Yeah. I was wondering, because you're quite close to kind of Silicon Valley and all the kind of tech industry in the US, is that a source of inspiration for you?
It is. Sometimes reality is crazier than fiction, right? And what we've seen, or the acceleration of things that we've seen from Silicon Valley in different industries, even genetics, like you get to see what they're doing with, or like biotechnology, the whole thing around neural implants. I remember in my first years in the Bay, we're talking with this company that were doing these augmented reality like contact lenses at a very like icon level, but they were basically using micro heaters that were heating your retina cones to a certain heat to make sure that the retina cone was displaying an RGB value. Like that to me sounds even crazier than any film that we've done, like micro heaters in your eye. So I do feel like testing new technologies before they are out, being able to go down to Palo Alto or Menlo Park. Like I was at Meta the other day trying the new Orion prototype, and it's like, wow, if I wasn't here, I wouldn't be able to take a look at that, experience it by myself, new technologies. And these somehow inspire, maybe it makes us more accurate when we need to think about a film maybe that's happening in 50 years, how will that look like? Sometimes we need to be very grounded, but a little bit in the future. So having the very latest and greatest allows us to trace the points and speculate the trajectory and where things are going. So I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. You've mentioned in the past that like one of your favorite projects to work on was The Martian. And you also said that you dove pretty deeply into NASA's data system. Can you talk to us about that process? Like,
Yeah.
how do you even begin to learn NASA's data systems?
Honestly, like just you learn, it's not that we had to learn it deeply. That's also a project that as I was saying before, I always like to challenge myself to what I could do next that is better than what I've done yesterday. And this is one of the projects that I challenged myself to design it all. So I was like, can I take the whole film design? I had some help with certain animations or whatnot, but I wanted to own all the design. And that's why I was talking with Dave Lavery, who is the director for the Mars rover and Pathfinder missions. I think Pathfinder as well at Mars. And that was honestly Ridley Scott and their team saying, you talk to these guys once a week, because what we want is that when is at the theater, the cinema, watching The Martian, if someone really works or is an engineer from NASA, that they don't just get annoyed at what we've done with the writers. We need a sense of realism, because this is NASA, but it's NASA in 50 years, not now and not in 500 years either. So we need to be grounded, and we want this to be as real as possible. So I was in London when we were starting the first office there during those years. And I was waking up very early because we had to do calls with the West Coast. Anyway, it was a bit of a juggling time zones, but I was talking with them every Wednesday for probably 40 minutes to an hour, which was very generous for them to sit down and listen to all my stupid questions of what is this? What is that? But honestly, when you look at certain things, you don't need to go to really understand it in a way that you will be able to develop. You just need to understand what is important about this graphic, what are the key things that you guys use, like this line, this button, like what is this showing? They all end up being fairly simple. And all I was doing was adding a layer of design, not even UX, because like, we don't need to make it for a real development, but more of a reskinning all of these different widgets that, because they have been created in different times at NASA, and some of the technology there is 15 years old and this widget is 15 days old. So of course it all looks disjointed, and it's function first, like design at that point it's not that important. But redesigning something that already exists is easy then to be accurate, because all you're doing is saying, this graph. I'm going to do it this way, following my design language, using this thickness of line, or this will have the same font, it will have the same color. So you're reorganizing it. And once you look at it as a whole, then it starts making more sense. And even to them, we've been working with NASA as well now, but I think to them, when they saw some of these designs, they also saw that there's a value in designing things or having that cohesive visual language that allows for a better user experience, because you can identify quicker things that turn red, or like things that are out of way, instead of a big mess of different widgets. So that's probably that's why it's one of my favorite projects, not only because we saw like a pendulum effect of them coming back and saying, actually, that's pretty interesting the way that you created that. But all I had to do was reskin what they've done. And I also have my creative liberties. I remember I did a bit of an Easter egg, and one, I based a design of a screen out of a Pioneer DJ mixer and mix it in there to see like if it was it's done. That's the other thing that I was saying about looking at all the products that are physical and translating this to a digital. I'll send you that graphic and you can put it up.
Cool. Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. Yeah, the fact that they came back and they were like, "Oh yeah, this looks cool. Let's do this." That's amazing.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's very exciting, and I'm hoping that we get to work more with them. I'm glad that they look at us or they come to us when they do want to take good care about design, not just about like how functional and how the technology works, but also making it look. Because these days everything is streamed. You look at SpaceX did a good job, right? You look at the graphics for space. Of course, okay, they started from scratch, and I get it. NASA has all of the things that they have been building as they go.
Yeah.
And they're not a private organization, which also changes a lot of things when it comes to funding. But SpaceX is a good way to compare. It's like very clean, very to the point, sophisticated. It makes them look good. And that's also important when you're working with these big brands.
Yeah, like I guess for them, Blue Origin, it's like marketing as well.
Yeah.
Like they want it to look cool. Like cool. Like so is this research and like going deep on projects, is this always part of your creative process? And is this something that you've crossed over into AI as well?
I think sometimes we don't have time to do anything.
The real world, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's wow, okay, we need to move. There's not much time for research or deep learning. And sometimes we do have the luxury to do that. I think some concern I have with going very deep on that learning is that sort of ignorance can be a bliss sometimes, could be a blessing, because you will attack or tackle things in a different way because you don't know better, or because you're like thinking that's, yeah, we could do that. And really you cannot do that because that would never work. But if we do the too much deep learning, we probably will end up in the same place that everyone ends with that deep learning. And then in a way, I understand that for things, this is very important because you need to be extremely accurate and whatnot. And there's only one way to do it. When it comes to design and how you interpret data or how certain things work, not going too deep could be also a good way to approach it. If the project that you're working on can afford it. AI, in my opinion, is learning from something that has been learned before. I always start to touch about what AI is recreating something that someone already said. And if humans have got to like deep research about certain things, and that's what AI learns from, AI is only going to show us one way. And that's my not concern, but that's my hesitation around like all following the same way and all using the same tool that is based in the same inspirations that will end up pointing all of us at the same one. And to me, is surely there must be things that we can find out ourselves without ending in the same place by just exploring. Exploring, that's right. Of course, if there's a path that we all follow, if there is a jungle and there's a path in the center, because that's where for millions of years, people have been, running through that path. That's nice. Yeah, cool. Let's all use it because it's useful. But what if one day someone goes on the right side instead of following the path, and ends up in the same destination, but discovers like a beautiful natural swimming pool and like a beautiful tree that no one has ever seen. That's my point.
Mm.
Yes, we know that we have to go from A to B in certain projects. And we know that the way is this way because that's what everyone told us. But in creativity, I think sometimes you need to get out and explore and widen your field of view a little bit more. Otherwise, we will end up in doing things in the same way. And that comes back to what we were talking about, inspiration. If you look at things that have been done, you're probably going to end up being so influenced by these things and by this designer that you aspire to be, or by this design that you like so much that you're going to not create anything new. You're going to end up recreating a little bit of a version of what they've done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like a big theme in AI. But let's talk about AI a little bit more. So I'm interested to hear how Territory are using AI, and I wondered if there's any specific examples you can think of that's a little bit more advanced uses of AI that you're experimenting with.
There, we just recently delivered a project where we pushed Comfy UI to do, it's almost like a deep fake of footballer. And this was for Chelsea and Three, the cellular mobile network in the UK. And we got archival footage and images from this footballer from the early days, like very much like low resolution, degraded footage, like all very not great, but thanks to AI, we were able to clean up, upscale, and all the way to the point to recreate hair face, this footballer, pass it into a model, be able to we were leveraging different models at a stage that allowed us to recreate this footballer and do a full on face swap and do a sort of a live interview with this footballer that is not alive anymore. This is cool, right? To me, it's wow. Like without AI, it would have been very difficult to do the whole recreation from archival all the way to real time 3D meshing, detecting points, light, all of that's interesting. It's a processing operation that allowed us to do that. And that's where I'm more interested in these more processing models that allow us to speed up certain processes. If I can render 10 frames at 2K and I pass it to a model that gives me 60 frames at 4K or 6K, that's cool. At the end of the day, it's about computing, it's about processing data. If AI can help us, certain AI algorithms can help us to process data even faster than just render every single frame at 4K. If we can use upscale, these are very useful for pipelines like ours. And we get to see, we're testing as well certain things with Match Move and Rotoscope for our VFX pipelines that while they are not quite there yet, at least we are experimenting with it. And personally, I just love the whole image to mesh models like Trellis or the Hayunian, like things that can expedite getting a model out of an image, a 3D model, even if it's not perfect. After passing it through some remeshers from Houdini or from ZBrush or Cinema, you get a very cool first pass at a model out of an image in 2 to 3 minutes. Not even that. To me, that used to take quite a lot of time. Getting a modeler, this is what we want to start with. And that modeler will start with, probably will start with a cube. But my point is like, it will start getting somewhere. And in half a day, he or she will have gotten to the point that now in a minute, I can get out of an image to mesh model. These accelerations, and again, it's nothing creative. If we want to model imagine a creature and all that stuff, okay, cool. I get it. Like you need the creative mind behind it, making decisions of distribution of polygons. And I want this creature to have this and that. But if what you're doing is recreating and you just say, I want this cup. Honestly, I want this cup in my VR experience in 5 minutes. You can these days. So that's to me what's very interesting and exciting these days.
Yeah. Do you have people on the team that are building your own AI models?
No, not necessarily our own AI models. I think we building blueprints that pull certain models and kind of create almost a cascading pipeline of these will do that. Then we can input our sort of values and noodle it in a way that as creative we want this to be, and then we pass it into this other model that does this other thing, but not necessarily creating models. I mean, we did test models that are agents, let's say it, less models, but more agents that are created by only using a set of influence. So especially when we're working with certain brands or certain people from labels, music labels, or things like that, they want to be very clear that what they've done is ethical, is that you need to kind of train models with a limited data set. And again, you're training models because the models already have intelligence. They've been trained already, but you want these models to play only with this data set of images or art. Even we tried it with territory. Okay, feed this model only with territory work and see if we ask this model, hey, can you spit out something? And it's just for fun. But I think models are they already been trained. And yes, you can point them in a certain direction, but to train a model from scratch, that's also very intense at the moment. And maybe that's going to get democratized, but
yeah, because like when this first came out, that was something that I imagined that like all the big studios, and I think it's happening a little bit with kind of film industry at the moment, they just take their whole body of work and create a model trained on their body of work. For example, just yesterday I saw a new one that took a minute to train, or no, that's not true. It was trained on Tom and Jerry anyway, and it was spitting out new Tom and Jerry cartoons. But I was like, how useful is that? Surely, yeah, somebody owns the copyright to that.
yeah. Honestly, like the thing is, fine, you can do that, but like someone needs to create Tom and Jerry. Someone needs to give these characters a personality. Someone needs to give these characters a physique, a certain physique, a certain like. These are decisions that come from the creator mindset and Python. They are decisions that are based on emotions, and there are decisions that are made in that mode. I was thinking with somebody the other day, it's like, oh yes, but now I can do the entire film, whatever. So, yeah, sure. You can, fine. It's all going to be based on things that already exist. But sometimes all you want is to recreate other things. Sure, use it. To me, is that moment when you are on set or where you're in a location and the DP is calling you in to kind of a look at a shot. And all of a sudden, like something that is unexpected happened. And because of that, you make a decision to kind of change that shot or to kind of do something new because of like how cool it is, how this ray of light is passing through this crack right now at this latitude in the planet at 2:32 p.m. It's just happening right now. We want to, and right now is where we have our talent there, and this is hitting right at that height of his eyes. I'm just making this up. That's where you're gonna. Oh my God, we have something that no one has thought about, but we are now making creative decisions around place, the time, type of people, a type of, and that you're not gonna, and you're gonna get a shot from that. There's gonna be like, oh, if you have the right creators on the tools, you're gonna create something that looks phenomenal. It's gonna be, maybe it's the first time that a visual like that has been created. I'm talking about live action, but it goes for everything.
Mm-hmm.
There are these like happy accidents that are really not accidents. If you weren't there at the time and place, you wouldn't have had the luck to bump into this with this other person. There's these things that are very difficult to recreate a situation like that, to make that also the creative decision to say, I feel like the spacing between these and these, and it's how it feels to you, not what it feels by comparing to something that exists already. This is to me like what an emotionally driven creative process is, to create things, not to recreate. It's very different. Create versus recreate. I always say that. If you want to recreate something, sure, AI will do it. Like we've seen it almost everything.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that it does, because I do think we'll go that way. I do think we'll get to a level of automation when AI will make things cheaper, quicker, and it will just keep recreating the stories that have been popular. So I think it will push creatives and to be original, to allow people to take more risks because they are almost forced to, because the alternative is something that's generated quickly and automatically with AI.
Yeah.
Cool. I think you've already answered this, but I'll ask it again just in case.
Nice.
What excites you or worries you about new AI tools? Is there anything specific that you're...
Yeah, I mean, I think to me is it's going to be very cool. Again, as you said, like when we can say, hey, add an exploding car in the middle of this road because this is the road location we shoot. Like this used to be like a full VFX team trained on recreating something that we all know how it looks like. And yeah, there will be creative leverages. Yeah, but I can do a spark that comes to the camera. Like, fine. Surely with AI, soon you will say a car exploding in the middle of the road. And when we've never been part of this type of work. The work that we do with VFX and all stuff is creating things that do not exist. It's creating maybe now this new technology, this hologram, this, and that's why I feel like, okay, that's going to be cool. What I'm excited is about like how now I don't need to kind of send this to rotor tracking, like even AI model can speed up that process. That's what I'm excited about. It's like this sort of a mundane or things that there's no other way to do it. It's either tracking perfectly or not tracking perfectly, right? Those are like the things that will speed up our pipelines, but also will allow us to spend more time on what's creative and what's how it looks, how it feels, rather than if it's tracking perfectly or if this rotoscope is. So this is the part that excites me the most. How fast we can get with other things like upscale, as I was saying. If I can render at 2K and you can speed out a 16K upscaled version of these that goes to the sphere, great. I don't have to spend the time that takes to render 16K frame by frame. And also, if you wanted the 60K frames per second, that's going to take something. So if we're going to speed up that process, again, it's not a creative process. It's just render what we decided. These are the ones that are the most exciting to me when it comes to helping us be more creative. And then if we want to go into like deeper algorithmic new mediums, next generation, I'm always very excited about all of the algorithms around neuron, like the neural radiance fields and things like this that kind of can disrupt a lot when it comes to scanning and doing like what everyone calls splats now, but getting 3D data, hopefully at one point at real time for real time application, which is already starting to happen, which is very interesting.
Yeah, that looks exciting. I've not checked back in on them for a while. The last version I saw, someone had built like a 4D neural radiance field. So they made a video basically.
Yeah.
But you can just pause it at any point and rotate all around it because it's just like a 3D world essentially. Cool. I want to change tack a little bit because you introduced a topic to me that I hadn't heard about before, and that was like the human only internet. And this was something that you mentioned in your talk at Paradiso as well. And you did a little survey on the room, like who would be interested in the human only internet? And pretty much the whole of the room was like, that's a great idea. Can you just tell us a little bit more about this whole concept?
Yeah. So it's something, it's not, again, I didn't invent the concept or anything. I just heard about it. I learned a little bit more. I feel like it's very interesting and I kind of have my own thoughts about it. I've done research. I like doing research about things that I like. And at the moment, if we look at the internet as we know it, is pretty much, it's now over 50% of the content is, or users are, is like bots, AI generated content, things that actually no human has touched, or is this just like a full bot generating YouTube videos about watches, whatever, right? Not only that, but you have deep fakes, you have impersonation. Our voices are now used in scams that call your mom saying, "Mom, I'm like about to die," or whatever. That's very scary, right? And it's all because internet as we know it is open and that has been taken over by, in my opinion, by these algorithms that and AI in general. So to me, like, okay, what the idea of having a human only internet sounds very exciting because if we can ensure that there's a new internet where the only user that you can have is human, it's not a machine, it's not a bot, it's not, and the content that we generate, that you generate is proven to be like your content that you generated and it's real. It's not a deep fake or a reproduction of yourself. Then that makes things more interesting. Also eliminates a lot of potential propaganda, misinformation, because again, one thing is fact checking because you can be saying something that is not true or like, but at least it's you. And we know that it's you and it's Luke or it's Marty. We know that the user behind that video, behind that post, behind that picture is you or me. That it sounds very interesting. You start going deep and deep, and it will end up generating more authentic content rather than lots of this algorithmic content, which is pretty much, yeah, it's not authentic. It's not coming from a human. So to me, that's exciting because I think it will be very beneficial on how we communicate with each other, and it eliminates a lot of these things that are here to sell us more shampoo or whatever, which I hate. None of that. If none of that existed and it was just like a clean slate on internet is only for humans, but then you also need to think like how, right? And then is when, in my opinion, okay, you need to validate that you are Luke and then I'm Marty before I log into this human only internet. And the only way is to do it with biometrics that I know. And there are lots of, it's not that we need neural implants for this. There are ways to know. Our phone knows if Face ID, if it's looking at the right person that is alive, that is not like a mannequin. So there's things like these combined with fingerprints, combined with retina scan, whatever it is that could validate, authenticate that, yeah, this is Marty. But then that opens another wall of potential risk, which is, oh, who owns this data? Oh, how we will need to be in an immutable blockchain, like similar to, again, Bitcoin, something that is not, no one is controlling, it's decentralized, but it's very secure. And no one can take that data because that's almost like the ultimate. If you lose that and someone can definitely impersonate you because they have your biometrics access, but surely there's a way that if it's not you at that point that is accessing it, it doesn't work. So we will need to work very hard. And I know that there's some companies already looking into it, but to me, it sounds very exciting. A human only internet.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely popular, but then you're like, how do we actually execute it? And it's biometric, blockchains, all these kind of things that people are a little bit scared of. But I think my own opinion is really we're on this kind of cusp of if you think it's bad now, it's going to get a shitload worse because we're on the cusp of AI automation and we don't really have any useful bots. But I bet by the end of the year, like we've got something pretty useful.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm looking forward to see where it goes. And every technology, there's good cases and bad use, good use, bad use of the technology. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, my own opinion is like we might get there quicker than people think, but we'll see. We'll see if it's all just hype or not.
Yeah.
There's AI news every day, and it's hard to stay on top of it. I was like, how do you personally stay up with all these kind of stay up to date with all these new kind of technologies?
I like testing things. I don't want to just have an opinion of something that I didn't have the chance to test it myself and have my own opinion. I see lots of people that say, oh yeah, this and this does that. How bad? And then I talk with them. I was like, but have you tried that model or like that thing? That no, but I've seen it, and my friend told me this and this. Okay, cool. I respect that you trust your friend, but I have a different opinion. How about what I think about that model and how I can help you doing these other things? And then some people like look into it, they get to test it, and then they have their own opinion. That's at least how I see it myself. I don't want to have an automatic opinion or following the popular opinion on this is good or bad until I have the chance to look into it and try it myself. I don't have the time to try everything, but I do want to test things. I think eventually, I remember when the internet came up and all that stuff, like there were some people saying, this is the end. What the hell? What's going to happen to this and these other guys? And look at that. Like it supercharged so many industries. It kind of it changed like humanity interaction and all that stuff for better or for worse. That's everyone's opinion. But to me, AI is like, it could be that what supercharges the next generation of artists. And it could bring like great tools and great things to our industry and the planet as well. If we start using it for, sorry, if we start using it for cure of disease or whatnot, it could be very good. It could be very disruptive. So there's always like the two sides of, oh, this could end up very bad, or this could actually be very cool and very good for us. So I don't know. I just try to be as educated as I can, reading papers, as I was saying, with the nerve, talking, having meetings with people that are publishing papers. These guys, or testing plugins like the Neural Angelo that I always talk about, which is it's remeshing nerve or radiance field splats into getting polygons so you can have shadows, occlusion. Talking with these guys that are funded by the government of Spain, actually, Bolinga, who are doing nerves at a already 15 frames per second in Unreal. So it's like almost real time nerve that comes from a camera. Like that's very disruptive if it works.
That's interesting that the Spanish government's investing. Is that just because they invest in new technologies, or is there a deeper use there?
I guess lots of governments have grants for innovation and research. And someone said, "Oh, have you heard about these guys? They're in Spain. You should talk to them." I was like, "No, I never heard of them." And I didn't just talk to them because they were in Spain or in Barcelona, where I'm from. It was more like that. The papers that and the research they done was very interesting to me, because I always thought it's cool that you do a splat of a moment in time. That's fine. Like it's one image that now you can see in 3D. Cool. Yeah, it's a start. But what if I can shoot at 60 frames per second on a camera and then do VFX around it and all of a sudden, and yeah, but you can have VFX if we don't have polygons and meshes, because you want some light of this effect or something that bounces, you will need the mesh. And that's why I started researching about meshing nerves and the Neural Angelo NVIDIA plugins. And then the ultimate goal that will be like, but what if you could have a camera and then also in real time, you could just be there and it's all animated and you could be moving because it's now a real time nerve. And that to me is when it got very excited. I got to talk with them, and that's how I get into these discussions, because I'm excited about it. I'm interested. I get in touch.
That's really interesting, because you can imagine like it's filmed in kind of 3D and you're inside the film, but you could even remove elements. Like say you had different age ratings, like you could remove like the stripper in the background that didn't really need to be there, but like for the 18 rating it's there, and then for the younger audience just like remove objects. But you could do that for all different kinds of user groups and stuff like that.
Yeah, technology on the hardware side getting there, like you see Vision Pro or something like that. Imagine if our medium that hasn't changed for years and years, which is that frame that we all look at, it starts being disrupted by a full immersive headset now that soon will be reduced to either like small glasses or a neural implant. Then you need a content that is linear or not linear, but immersive. And if you can have that photorealistic, so you're not doing, oh yeah, cool. I can be in Minecraft in VR. That's cool. And if you can go all the way to photorealism, because this is shot in a way that is using the real world, but now all of these higher frame rate splats are available for you to kind of experience. And like that is going to disrupt the medium of films, episodic, even documentaries. Like that's how what everything should be going. If these dots starting to kind of collide, which is the software, AI algorithms, splats, all of that, which is based, the neural radiance fields is thanks to AI that we can do it, because it's generating a triangulation of points, generating the points that are missing, calculating how light bounces in this material and will bounce into something that not even the camera sees. That's what's exciting. That's thanks to AI. And then if you have the hardware component also coming up hot, there's a point of convergence where you have the software and the hardware being able to do all of this. To me, that's the unlock, which probably is in a couple of years or less.
Yeah, could be. So we're almost coming up on an hour, so I'll make this the last question. Interested to hear your take on it, because I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, to be honest. But if you accept that we're on this road of AI, and at some point we'll get to AGI, and AGI is like a human level computer. So I think at that point it like becomes difficult for people to have jobs, and if you don't have a job, how's the economy work, and all things like this. So I wondered if that's something that you ever consider. What does a world like after AGI look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. To me, it goes back to, can this new way of kind of executing processes be something that no one wants to do, and it helpful that someone else is doing it for us, so we can focus on what makes sense. It's a tricky, way of thinking, because then you think, yeah, but Marty, there are people that all they know how to do is to, I don't know, go to the field and take the corn out and put it in a basket. It's like, okay, no, I get it. And honestly, like, it's terrible that we might even get this sort of a lower, like these people, that's all they have out of it, because there's now a machine doing their job. But the point, if we were all looking at it from the positive change, means that these people now can have an opportunity to kind of be doing all the things that are still needed, and that we will need, and that maybe because AI is taking, or like robotics with AI is taking care of all of that, as humans, we can start taking care more of things that matter. And maybe again, there's always a bad story, or a pessimistic outlook, or an optimistic. I always try to be optimistic, but we shouldn't be doing certain things that will hurt us for real. Like, as in, we know that if we do these, this is gonna just cut all of these people out of their jobs, and there's no job replacement for them, and there's no training ways for them to kind of find another job before they get replaced. Because similar to the internet, is, oh, the internet took all of these people out of their magazines work, whatever it is. Yeah, but how about the trillions of engineers jobs that now are needed to operate with websites and things in the internet? That's, if you look at it, yeah, the beginning was looking very pessimistic. What the hell is going to take? But then now you look at it, it's generated a lot of jobs. Can it be that AGI and all of that sort of also creates an entire new set of jobs that are needed to just improve these machines that are doing what we want them to do now? I don't have a real answer, and it's a very tricky and political touchy point, right? Because you don't want to be seen as, oh, you don't care about the people that will lose their jobs. No, I do care a lot, but I also have seen, like everything, there's a good use and a bad use of it, and it's for us to kind of make sure that we make the right decisions to whatever it is, both for people that will make a good use of it, and not just give to the 10 or 1% of the population, which is the ultra rich mega corporates, that will then get a bunch of extra money because now they cut their cost of sales by a quarter because they don't need to pay benefits, and they have a machine doing it for them. It's tricky, that one.
Yeah, it's almost an impossible question. Obviously, it's an impossible question to answer, but it's also a little bit uncomfortable. But if we accept that we are on this road, like, you can argue it's 5 years, 10 years, maybe we will never get there. Maybe there is just a missing element and scale's not enough, but I think we'll get there at some point, and we don't actually have any great visions of where we're trying to get to, which
Yeah.
is funny.
I don't know. I think sometimes I feel it like, oh, flying cars. Yeah, sure. We all seen about these flying cars. Do we have flying cars? No. Maybe they're coming, sure. But I know it's a stupid comparison. But to me, it's like sometimes things are feeling a certain way, and then we just realize, no, that's not very practical. That will create more issues than solutions. When it comes to AGI, I think there needs to be a serious look at what the issues that this can generate and create, and how can it just accelerates the distance between the richest and the poorest, and the planet, which is something that we've been seeing, how it's getting worse and worse. There's less of a medium class. Like, people are already being pushed to either the 1%, or like the 1% taking advantage of everything else. I don't know. I was watching this video the other day. There was an AI responding to some of these questions. And what was interesting was, like, the AI machine basically was saying that intelligence as we know it has been here since forever. It's just that we've been discovering it. And it said the machine said it in a way that said, what if I've always been here, but only now you guys have unlocked the potential to be able to communicate with this intelligence? Because if you think about it, it's like when I think about recreation, like how everything is the influence of something and you learn everything, you create a super machine that learns about everything, then ends up in the same place, right? It's true as a global intelligence, as like intelligence as we know it. It has always been there. We've just been discovering it. A plant photosynthesis at some point someone discovered it. It doesn't mean like it wasn't like that before. It was always there. So we've been opening the doors to an intelligence that has been there. So that's the truth, or that's how it is, right? Science, it's immutable. It's like how it is. That's no other way. The plant grows or doesn't grow. It doesn't have sun and water. Before that, we were pointing at God. It's like, that must be God that makes this plant grow. But as soon as you educate it to know that, no, this is science, water and photosynthesis cells do this, and that's how it works. So to me, like that's always been there, but before we didn't access it. When we think about AGI, what's to come or whatnot, maybe it's already all written in a way as we already know that, and we're just getting to discover, oh, wait a second, like this maybe is how we could have it done for centuries, but it took us all of these centuries to get to be good enough with technology to create a solution that can do this, collect the corn from the cells without anyone getting sunburned. And that made me think a lot, that the idea of intelligence is here. It's always been here. It's only now that we're getting to discover a part of it. So when people ask me, what do you think is going to happen? Like for me, it's like, whatever's going to happen, I don't think you or I are going to now say, no, we're going to stop all of this now because we don't want a robot collecting corn from our fields. Look, whatever's going to happen, it will eventually happen. Because I think it's there, and I don't think no one will change how things will evolve. We'll delay it maybe, but truly, if we're getting to discover this now, maybe it's because it's been there all the time. And yeah,
No, that's a really interesting take on it, actually, that intelligence has already been there. So yeah, it's a great way to end. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. It's been great.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Again, it was great meeting you at Paradiso. We have to thank that event. I'll definitely recommend it to any creative that wants to join next year in March. I got to meet you, Luke, and others, and I'm sure it's not the last time that we're going to be talking about all of these different things that are interesting in our industry. So thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure, and keep doing what you do.
If you like this video, you love our weekly newsletter, sign up at designresources.ai.